Christmas with like 5 feet of snow on the roof. I had just gotten to Australia, so I took his picture and my picture of being on the beach, and I put send this. I'm like, you're gonna hate me, but that's not it.
Yeah, Christmas Day in Australia on the beach.
Yeah, we were on the beach. I went surfing on Christmas Day. It was so weird. Like, it did not feel like it at all. But had a cool experience.
Yeah. So I hear y'all moved into a new building.
We did.
Yeah.
Just 2 weeks ago. So over a block or two from Whole Foods.
So is it, if I understand correctly, there's a kind of a high-end clothing boutique?
Yeah, Brian was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what that shop is. But
Okay.
They have valet parking.
Yeah.
Clothing store.
Yeah.
And y'all are in that spot? Is
There's
that-
like an office park behind it.
Okay.
Hey, y'all, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Are you?
Great.
Yeah.
Anthony, Sam, nice to meet you.
John?
Hey, John. David. Hey, David. Great. iPhone up.
Just getting ready.
Yeah, no worries.
It's your first time?
At this meetup, this is my first time. Very awesome. I'm not from Austin. From Richmond, Virginia. Yeah. Well, I live here now, right? Yeah.
Right.
Where do you go?
Richmond's a nice area.
Yeah, it's fun. Sure. Not fun here, obviously. Yeah. I assume you guys all work in the field. Me too.
How long have you been doing it?
About 6 years now.
You're a longer timer.
Long time. I'm very happy that our interface builder have been created.
Absolutely.
Man, that's what makes me feel old too, like when I get to talk about that stuff.
Oh, hey, what's happening?
Good man, how are you?
Good, good. Taking off from the TV.
Yeah.
Building anything?
Nothing yet.
I got it. I have
Yeah. I hacked a little bit, very little bit. I didn't get much of that one. I think there's a water right here.
Yeah. Have there been any cool apps you've seen on there?
Nothing new since.
It was during Austin's art week. So we were like, let's have words on the word tree.
Really cool.
I'm so good at it. I found that.
I do have like 4 recordings. That is true.
Yeah, it's gonna
Somebody definitely
really
did
be in breakthrough for the screensaver industry.
Yeah. I thought it was hilarious. It wasn't, what, 4 days into it that Apple made the announcement, okay, no more fireplace apps.
What about Aquarium?
Yeah.
That's what came out right after.
Are they still allowing our apps for the TV?
I don't know.
So the Rush would be the big one, big first one.
Are there a bunch of like retro, like Windows 95 screensavers?
Haven't seen that. I've seen a lot of old school arcade games.
Ah,
Yeah, that one Pac-Man and.
That's cool.
Yeah, that sounds fun. But a lot of that on the hobbies.
I still need to use the apps themselves. I just can't justify it other than development. I guess I can do that in some minute.
It's not a sacrilege, but I prefer developing for the Xbox.
Oh, you've done that?
Apple TV for sure.
Oh, awesome. I wish some of the apps on the Xbox One were a little bit.
Yeah.
Some of them are a little buggy, but it's probably because it's something new.
Sure.
As the Xbox, is that only gaming, or do they do other types of apps?
There's all sorts of apps.
All
All
sorts
sorts
of
of
What's that used to connect for like communication?
Usually, the MLB TV app is really slick. I think that's gonna jump from pitch to pitch or. Really cool interface and switch from game to game.
I wish they had like a free preview game, because I don't watch baseball, but I'm interested in the app.
They have a free game every day.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they pick one game every day, it's free.
One day, I looked into that.
It's what I do is I just split it in ways with some friends and go like something. They know it. Royals. I'm from there. I've lived through a lot of bad seasons. Finally got two good ones.
A long time ago, I used to watch the Braves all the time.
Oh, yeah.
That's been some years ago.
You guys had a lot of good years.
Yeah.
A lot of good years last.
That's what solves about 16 people.
Something crazy. Oh, my whole life without a playoff game until
These things
a year and a half ago.
What's that thing I gave you was it's enough for that can.
Hey, I'm David.
Russell.
Yeah.
It's my son Matt.
Is that the iPhone stuff?
Atmosphere.
Yes, but not a whole lot of development yet. I've done development on a lot of different platforms and the way of software and stuff. He is,
Blue Jays?
he's this passion is hard.
You wanted me to come along and thought I, you know.
Once in a while, yeah.
Oh, okay.
It'd be a good
So I knew you were
somebody
from
who's
Buffalo.
developing an app that needs original art for it.
I have a lot of people that are more into like developing and work for gaming companies, stuff like that. But I'm more interested in how like the art works for different stuff like that. Maybe I should, you know, get involved in using certain
What do you
kind
think
of
about
things.
Keith Ryan?
I know I've seen a whole lot of kind of
they're gonna
creative
keep
stuff that I
playing.
never seen before, like
I
iPhone
like it.
graphics and
I like
different
it.
apps specifically for
Players
making
like
stuff.
playing well.
You
You got the two AFC.
iPhone.
Yeah.
Like, so they'll make an app that is, you use it on your
It's exciting,
iPhone, styles
or it's more exciting.
create graphics and you post them, it's very much like an Instagram kind of thing. And, so there's whole thought, like, you know, groups of people that are
Oh, you
creating
like
graphics
create the art.
on iPhones, for iPhones, they're not really like, you don't buy prints, you don't have it.
You guys haven't had anything.
I don't know, just the idea of like, it was like taking the tools you find in Illustrator and Photoshop and making them more simplified for on phone, just put up some stuff. But I'm assuming, I don't know, he was saying that any apps, even if they're not games, need artwork, like games, I like artwork, I like technology.
And I've got several websites that I'm the administrator of that I'm in the process of converting to WordPress. And so I have my fingers in a lot of pies.
Have you seen the new iPad
For a little
Pro?
bit, I got into listening to
Yeah, they have them on display in the Apple Store, and they also have this new thing called Apple Pencil. And it has like this really precise detection, and also,
So it's competing with the Surface, whatever they call it, the pen that they're
Yeah.
advertising a lot of.
yeah, so
Will it do the same kind of thing?
yeah, so you can, there's drawing apps for it, and it's also really good at, I think it's called like palm rejection or something. So when you
Oh.
put your hand on it, it'll ignore it.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
you can like,
So this is kind of like a computer, adding like Wacom tablet kind of functionalities to just, that's awesome. I think I've seen something about the pencil, is this the one that charges by sticking it in?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
well, it only, it
Yeah.
charges really fast.
Okay, so that's the, okay. Yeah, I remember reading.
So it's like,
about it.
it's like 2 minutes for like a few hours of charge, so you can just stick it in real quick
That's what you stick it
into the bottom port.
Oh, well,
That's
okay.
what they're, I've just been reading the
It's
discussions.
funny, and it
Yeah.
seems like people will break it.
Plug it in the pencil long-wise into the internet. And so people are like, okay, why would you do that? That seems
Yeah, if it'll charge you too
Right,
much.
yeah, but yeah, so that's, it charges with.
Yeah, the new mouse also has a port, but it's on the bottom. So like
Right,
if you're
yeah,
using
that's-
a mouse like this, you have to like turn it over and plug the cable in the bottom.
That came up as well, is they were like, well, the pencil actually isn't a big deal because it charges so fast, but like the mouse, for instance, was a thing where it's like I can't use the mouse.
But the mouse too, it's also like 2 minutes for a day of charge too. Like I got one.
They actually have a lot of.
Oh, they have one?
And I
Yeah.
haven't charged
They have a lot
it
of
yet.
apps.
And with the other one, like before I had a different battery powered one, I had to like switch the batteries every like 3 months. So it's gonna be nice once it does run, I just plug it in real quick, for maybe even a few hours.
Yeah, I've
You
seen
know,
it about
at
that.
night, and the next morning, I can use
Cause I
it
hate,
for
just boring radio
weeks and
stuff.
months.
Do you have serious?
No, I just understand.
Okay.
So that's why.
Is it possible to develop iPhone apps on a Windows OS system?
No.
I can post them.
It's,
I
yeah,
have medicals, I have a Mac estimating that it's a couple of generations out of date, so I need to pony up for a newer system for doing that part of it.
Yeah, so native iOS development
I actually don't
requires
remember this.
Xcode, which only runs on macOS.
I know, I didn't get
If you,
something.
you know, if you mainly are going for
That's a good
Android,
idea.
you're also wanting to do iOS, then there's like certain options.
But you
Stick
can
it
also
like in
bypass,
If you wanna do fully native,
Yeah.
True.
I've been the iPhone,
Usually I just throw it
Android,
in.
back to iPhone. If you want to know, 80 years of Android.
Yeah.
They, you know, we talk a good story, but, the apps, all the apps on the App Store are higher quality, better, more usability, more user-friendly than any of the Android apps.
We got a Camel Factory.
Yeah, they got lots of them, and they're not expensive.
Small design demo.
You get it. So, what is the minimum system
Yeah.
like to go away with? Say I want to go on a fucking cheap, like, Mac Mini.
yeah, if you get the cheapest Mac Mini they sell, the new one, that one's good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good cafe.
Maybe if you're doing a kind of, if you're using, you know, if you also want to have Photoshop open and you also want like all the things.
I just recently bought an ultra high def TV, HDMI, so I should be able to use it as a second monitor in theory.
Yes, the thing you want to worry about that is, I think HDMI, HDMI one was 60 hertz, right? They do 60 hertz.
I think this
Yeah.
would show, I think the older TVs, maybe not, but this is the ultra high def 40.
Yeah, 4K.
4K, sorry, 4K, it should be able to.
Yeah, because, my laptop is right at the point where it can't do 60 hertz with 4K resolution.
That's
But maybe,
amazing.
that's the one. There's, somewhere on Apple's website, there's a page where you can confirm that.
Outside, like,
Monitor,
the
or
giant
you can pass
wizard
it to
that
Apple
flames
Store.
if it smells
Okay.
good.
It's a wizard robot.
Yeah, the giant, like in the form of a TV or something.
Should we move further back?
Yeah, I think, since we have less than normal people here today, we should probably get it up a little closer
Cozy?
for the talk.
Moving up in the world. Yep. It's VIP seat.
How's it going?
Hey, need to bug you about something.
Cool.
Yeah.
I forgot to wash this after New Year's Eve.
All right, welcome everyone to the first meetup of the year, the January 5th Austin iPhone Developer Group meetup. And today I've got one talk prepared, and then the rest of the time we'll have for networking. And before we get started, I wanted to mention a lunch and learn that my colleague Daniel at Jackrabbit Mobile is doing. It's going to be next Tuesday for lunch. You can come back here to Capital Factory, and there's going to be like a 1.5 hour session on mobile UX. And he's Daniel's like our resident mobile UX testing expert, so he's got a lot of experience going to working with app users and figuring out how they respond to stuff, so we can plan how to build an app before we're actually doing the code. And so he's going to have a whole session on that, and there's going to be lunch provided from Jackrabbit. And cool. And then also I want to ask anyone who has a talk that they want to give, just send me an email, and I can get you scheduled for either February or March to do a presentation. And so today what I have is I have the list of my 5 favorite Apple or tech-related podcasts. And for each of them I have a slide of kind of like why I like them, my favorite episode. And so what I titled this talk is 5 podcasts you should be listening to. And I've gotten really into listening to podcasts. I think they're a really great way to use extra time that you have. Like if you're If you got a long commute to work, you can listen to a podcast on the way, learn a little bit about what some people are doing in the tech community, or there's also pretty much for any interest you have, there's podcasts that people are putting on. And it's also really good if you're like cleaning the house, you can listen to a podcast, or if you're at the gym doing your workouts, it's really good that there's a lot of 15 or 30-minute podcasts. You can put those on and listen to them while you're at the gym. So
We put a plug in for, since you're doing that, there's one that I listen to a lot, is the Brain Science Podcast. It's tailored toward the spectrum of people. You don't have to be a neuroscientist to understand it, but it gives you ideas on how your brain works and what you can do to be better. And I've learned a lot from that.
Cool, yeah. Yes, I'm going to share my favorites, and then at the end, I definitely want everyone to see if they listen to the podcast, bring them up, or also feel free to ask other people if they have any cool ideas for stuff you're interested in. So the first one that I have here it's called Release Notes, and this is the podcast that got me really into listening to podcasts. It's put on by two guys that both run their own indie iOS software companies. They both have like one flagship product that they work on, and it's pretty much their entire revenue or their entire income. For each of these guys, they both have their own business. And one, he makes an app for, it's basically a to-do list, but using the Franklin Covey method. And
What's the 7 habits?
no, it's
that's
Frank. Yeah.
yeah,
So
that's
there's a
different.
Habits of highly effective people, that's not Covey?
that
Oh,
What's
that
Covey?
is-
that author is Covey.
Yeah.
But Franklin Covey.
Franklin Planners
Planner is a
are
separate
were the
thing, yeah.
paper.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, and so they're really well known for having like their big paper binder that has like 2 columns. They have this whole process, but this guy, he makes an iOS version of it, and it's priced at like $15 or $20 for an iOS app. And so that's seems like something that wouldn't sell, but he's been able to turn it into a business. And so in the podcast, he talks about like different challenges and things that he had to learn to make that work. And then the other guy, he runs a company that makes a teleprompter app for the iPad. And for them too, it's there are 3 people at that company, and they run their entire income comes also from that teleprompter app. And so what I really like about this show is they really prepare their content really well. So they do a ton of research and thought goes into each week's episode. And they all talk, every episode is about running indie iOS business. And they're now popular enough that last year they put on a conference where they invited a bunch of other indie iOS developers to come to Indianapolis and give talks on the iOS indie subject. And so really interesting podcast if you're into the idea of running your own indie iOS company. And my favorite episode that I've listened to so far is called What I Do and What I Should Do. And it kind of talks about theoretically what you should be doing for your marketing, what they've done in the past, what didn't work, what did work for them. It talks about how you market the type of app they're selling. So you can find out more about the podcast at releasenotes.tv. It has all their podcasts, and then it also talks about that link. That website also covers their conference. Yes.
You're gonna be releasing your slides, correct?
Yes, I will upload the slides and share them with the Meetup group email. Yep. And so next up is a podcast called Inquisitive, and this I've only listened to 11 episodes from this podcast. I think it's in general it's a pretty cool podcast, but there's an 11-part series called Behind the App, and this series goes through the whole process of like how ideas for apps are developed, how companies decide what to build, how they build it. They interview a bunch of different people, mostly also smaller companies that either built it themselves or got contractors to build their app, and then they talk about how they do the marketing, how they do their big releases, and how that works. And also has a ton of really interesting facts about the App Store and the history of the App Store in there. They talk about the early days in 2008 with a bunch of anecdotes from them. They talk about the iPad store when that came out and how that grew. They have facts like in part 2, episode number 28 of Inquisitive, they said that Apple paid out more money to developers in 2014 than Hollywood box office made that year. So, really interesting facts of that. And they also said in 2014, the year-over-year profit growth or revenue growth of the App Store was 50%. So not only is it like it hit that big milestone of passing box office sales, it's also growing at 50% year over year. So I'm interested to see what the 2015 numbers turn out to be. And so yeah, that was one of the many facts that I learned from this podcast. So I really recommend the Behind the App series, which is part of the Inquisitive podcast. And so if you want to find out more about this podcast, you can go to relay.fm/inquisitive. And that's the entire podcast. And among those episodes, there's the 11-part series on Behind the App. And then the next one I have here is the Tech Table podcast. This one's put on by the people over at Mutual Mobile. And they're kind of in the same industry as Jackrabbit. They build apps for other companies and almost exclusively mobile apps, just like we do. And so it's interesting to hear from them. They're a larger company than us, and so they are also getting into things like virtual reality. And so they have basically each one of their episodes focused on a different industry trend. So they have like a wearables episode, and they have a IoT episode, and smart car episode. So whatever you're interested in, you can go and listen to that episode. Some of them are really well prepared, and others sound like they're like a meetup that was recorded. So, but still recommend the podcast. And my favorite episode was episode number 9, virtual reality. And that one's really good because they basically kind of covered all the different VR headsets that you can purchase right now. And they also have been able to get access to a bunch of prototype devices, and they collected other things that people are like trying at home to improve VR. And so it's a really good summary of what all is happening in virtual reality in one podcast. So that's my favorite episode of their show. And you can find their show on soundcloud.com/techtable. And the next one of my favorite podcasts here is the Developing Perspectives podcast. This one is by David Smith. He's a iOS developer who has developed and released over 100 apps on the App Store. And one of his most successful ones is a pedometer app that I use myself, and it has over 1 million downloads. Lots of people using it. It's really simple, just a bar graph basically of your daily walk count. And so he has his show. I think he's close to 300 episodes, I think, on his show, and they're 15-minute episodes, and they're kind of just focused on things that he's learning and dealing with at the time. And my favorite episode was 86, app pricing, and in that episode he talks about with so many apps he's tried a lot of different pricing approaches. So he's done the pay up front app, the in-app purchase, subscription, iAd, and he talks about how different apps had different success with those different app pricing approaches. And he now just recently joined together with Marco Arment to start a new podcast called Under the Radar, and that one's kind of a similar theme, but a little longer format and with 2 people instead of just one. And so you can find that one on developingperspective.com. And then here is my 5th one that I have, and this is the Immutable podcast. And this one, what they do is they collect questions from people on Twitter, email, and they even have a Slack team that you can join. And they just collect questions on iOS development and design. And then every week they get they do a 15-minute podcast where they answer 5 questions. So it's a really quick way to kind of hear about a lot of different topics. And but I've learned some pretty cool things from it, especially about prototyping tools and kind of how they do user testing, these 2 guys. And they also introduced me to the 8-point grid system for app design, which basically what that recommends is that you make all your designs have 8-point spacing or multiples of 8-point spacing, as well as widths and heights that are multiples of 8 points. And with that system, it looks pretty good, and then it also makes the math simpler and makes scalable assets easier. Because that way, if you design it 2x even, then you can always divide by 2, and you can multiply that by 3 to then get the 3x asset. So 8-point system works really well, and I heard about it here first. So that was.
These are points as in like the same as font point, 12-point font?
Yeah, so points are the iOS kind of pixels. They're, or like on Android, they're called resolution independent pixels, and on iOS they're called points. So they're not the actual point. They're not the actual pixels that go to the screen. They're kind of the ways that you measure views on your screen. And so they talk about, in episode 1, towards the end of the show, they talk about the 8-point system. But my favorite episode was episode 12, where they talk about, the episode 12 is called Walmart Brand Audio. And in that one they talk about how they, the hardware, software, and workflows they use to do their show. And they're kind of like audio nerds too, so they talk about the, making sure, like setting up their mics and the different tools they use to make sure that their audio quality stays high. So that was a pretty fun episode to listen to, but in general it's mostly about iOS design and development. Cool, so these are my 5 podcasts that I recommend. Again, first one was Release Notes, which is 2 independent developers who are both running their own apps on the store and basically making all of their income from their single prosumer app. And then Inquisitive Behind the App series talks about the App Store history and kind of the whole process that people go through. So I think that's a good one if you're getting started and you're interested to hear what the whole process is like, or if you're kind of really interested in it and you want to hear all those facts and interviews from people who've been successful in doing their own apps. And then I have the Tech Table podcast, which is really good for industry trends, kind of overviews of an area if you're interested in, like, I want to start working on a VR app because I think that'd be cool. And you can hear about the different headsets that are available, and they also talk about using kind of more like a gaming engine approach or something else. And then the Developing Perspective, that's a show by a very prolific iOS developer, and kind of his challenges that he's gone through in making his business. And then finally we have Immutable, which is a bunch of questions that are about iOS development and design, answered really quickly, letting you kind of get a little slice of different things, and then they have links so you can check out more about their answers if you run into something you really like. And so those are my favorite podcasts. Now I'm interested to hear what else other people listen to.
Before you ask for other podcast recommendations,
Yeah.
what is your favorite podcast viewer?
I use, what is it called? Overcast. Yeah, Overcast.
Overcast.
Yeah, so Overcast, cool thing on Overcast is it has a smart speed feature, which kind of like pre-processes the stream as it's coming in and finds pauses when people are speaking and just skips them. And then if people are, and then if it also analyzes their speaking. If they're going a little slower or faster, it also slightly adjusts it for optimal listening. it also has sound boost built in, so sometimes if it sees that the sound is like harder to hear, it kind of tries to increase certain levers on the audio quality to make it easier to hear. But mostly Smart Speed is cool for skipping the pauses, yeah.
Are you able to, excuse me, output from that into a format that you can use on your phone? Is that how you listen to it in the various scenarios that you
So
mentioned earlier?
the Overcast app is for iOS, so it's right in iOS. You
Okay.
just, it also has a bunch of recommended podcasts built straight into the client, and it also lets you search or import any RSS feeds or open standards for podcasts. Yep. And kind of interesting, the Overcast app is built by Marco Arment, who's now doing the Under the Radar podcast, and he just switched from a paid app model to a donation model. So interesting to see how that works for him.
So you talking about his success with it at all, like the different strategies?
Yeah, I think he started like 6 weeks ago, so I think he's still seeing how the donation approach is going to work. But like a kind of one reason I think he probably did that was he's one of the more well-known bloggers in iOS, and kind of that people who are iOS developers follow. And so whenever he switched to the donation, there was like an outrage, like, oh, you're ruining the App Store, which got more people to talk about it, which gets more people to pay for the app because they hear about it and they're like, oh, it's pretty cool, let me pay for it now. So it's kind of like a buzz marketing approach.
Have you ever heard of Startup? It's a podcast.
Yes, yeah, I almost put that on the list.
I know. I was sad to see it not on the list.
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's not iOS specific,
Yeah.
but it's entrepreneurial.
Yeah, Startup is a podcast that by a guy who's been doing who has been involved with a bunch of creating a bunch of podcasts in the past, and he was I haven't gotten too deep into it, but he had the idea of raising funding to make more podcasts, and so he
Basically
recorded.
Inception.
Yeah, he
You know,
recorded
podcast.
he recorded a podcast to record his process of getting money to create podcasts.
It's awesome. Every episode like folds on top of each other and like
Yeah, and he like records talks with investors.
yeah,
and
with his wife, with his like,
Yeah.
friends,
Yeah.
coming up with the name of the company.
Yeah.
There's
Startup?
Yeah,
Startup. Yeah.
yeah. I think one of the first few episodes.
They're hard to get through the first couple episodes.
Yeah.
He's like stumbling through investor meetings.
Yeah,
And,
and
like, giving his pitch, and you watch him get better.
Yeah, and you can kind of hear like I've pitched things to people before, and it kind of like it made sense in my head, but then when I said it didn't make sense anymore. You can tell he went through the same thing. So, and then but like the investors, some of them are like really.
Chris Sacca.
Yeah, Chris Sacca's like really constructive with their criticism, and they help him get a better pitch so that he can, because it's a good idea to get money, create podcasts, and then podcasts do make money.
It's kind of cool, like in you listening, you're part of the success of the podcast.
Yeah.
Because it's all about raising money and getting more users, and you realize that now you're a user, like part of that network. It's really weird.
Does anyone else listen to podcasts?
I have one that I just listened to once, mentoring developers, and it was okay. It wasn't like,
Yeah.
yay, I wanted to run screaming
Yeah.
down the street, but it was okay.
Yeah, that's what it is, like probably at least half of podcasts are just two people sitting in a room for 10 episodes just talking, and then they give up. So if it has 15 episodes, it's probably good. Yes.
I like the A16Z one. That's Mark Andreessen's VC firm.
Yeah.
They have a lot of really interesting episodes on like startup world, and there's actually a lot of mobile and software development related stuff.
Cool.
Say the name again.
A16Z.
A16Z.
What is like the format of that? Is it like people talking, or is it like a story, or?
It's usually either interview or someone's kind of giving a presentation. They have a lot of blog posts on their site as well, and a lot of them are like partner like blog posts, podcasts.
Yeah. Cool. Well, hopefully y'all check out some of these podcasts. and enjoy them and learn something from them. Yes.
So this is probably a little bit of a strange question, but some of the podcasts that I've come across that were interesting, I didn't actually listen to the podcasts themselves. I reviewed the transcript of the podcast, and that's kind of how I've done podcasts in the past. So what am I missing?
I think the main thing you're missing is the ability to listen to the podcast when you're not at a computer, not reading, not somewhere where you can be reading.
Okay.
I think that's the main thing. Also, there's a certain element of just there's a certain element of being able to learn things better when someone's saying them rather than just reading them. So.
If you learn that way.
For me at least. So.
I'm a visual learner. I learn better by reading stuff.
Yeah.
But if they're telling jokes, it's gonna telegraph.
That too. Yes.
I'll put in another plug for the Brain Science Podcast, particularly episode 111, Exercise in the Brain.
Uh-huh.
It gives you a little bit of motivation to do more exercise.
Yeah, for your New Year's
And
resolutions.
it tells you, after an exercise session, you have better cognitive function for a period of time, and then it sort of drains back off again.
After what?
After an exercise session, it doesn't have to be long, but it's got to be fairly intense. Get your heart rate really up for maybe 15, 20 minutes, and then you get better cognitive function for several hours after that.
Makes sense. Your brain, or your increased heart rate means they should be more aware and things like that. Yeah.
Back to your question about the benefit of podcasts, why would you listen to it rather than read it? I think it's just what you were saying about freeing up your hands to doing something. There was an interesting thing I read about how ornate knot tying used to be a thing for sailors to pass time while they're out at sea. They would listen to the radio and they would tie knots and stuff. Well, as soon as TVs came into the picture, that art form kind of died out because people were fixed to the TV. If you lose your ears and your eyes to something, that's what it is. But if you're listening to something, you can still do something with your hands. So for my own self, I make a hat out of a little loom, and it doesn't take that much concentration, but it's enough concentration that I can't watch a TV and make a hat at the same time. But I can listen to something and do that.
Yeah. Well, I kind of went the other way, because I started out just listening to stuff, but I always wanted to write notes. So I was always stopping and taking notes. So I just got in the habit of not just listening to things on the side, but making sure that if I am listening to it or reading about it, then I'm able to take notes.
Yeah.
So
Maybe the fact that it's a recording on, there would be something in the future that makes it easier to take notes from it outside of having to take it yourself, maybe.
That'd be interesting, a podcasting app where you
Cliff
could
notes for podcasts.
Yeah,
You can take notes.
you could
Somehow.
Pause it.
Audio notes.
Siri.
Yeah, maybe you could say there'd be a button save the last 5 seconds, save the last 10 seconds, and then it would transcribe it from the audio, dictation style.
Yeah.
That's cool.
new app.
Yeah.
There you go.
Audio
I also
screenshot.
listening at 2x speed, which is faster than I can read.
Yeah.
Some of them speak too fast.
Yeah,
But,
I've tried that. It's
that's not 1.5x. Is good.
that makes it hard. But that way, I think maybe if you're only listening to it, then you can listen to it. But creating a hat and listening to X, probably not gonna happen. All right, cool.
I think there is a podcast devoted to TED Talks, and they're just a great way to get your juices flowing and your creative side going.
Yeah.
I think a local one is Fun Size. Fun Size is a podcast called Hustle.
Yes.
It's all about running an agency.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of different things they go through.
Yeah, they talk about agency. They also talk about they have one episode where they have someone who's a product owner at Photoshop, and they have on Photoshop they have 60 engineers and 2 designers on the app. So yeah, so So that's like interesting.
Design
That's
alley.
why those features are hidden.
Yeah. So that's like interesting stuff you hear. They also have like one episode about someone who uses only Keynote for app prototyping. So that's an interesting one. Let's see.
Kinotopia, probably.
The what?
Kinotopia?
What's that?
It's essentially a package for Keynote. This came out some years back, but it essentially allows you to do all that prototyping through Keynote. So it's essentially a library that you pull into Keynote. So it's got all of the various views from the elements of the iOS elements, and you just pull them together and plug it in, and you click on certain things, and it moves to the different screens, and kind of gives you a quick little prototyping tool.
See, it's called Keytopia?
Kinotopia.
Kinotopia.
Yeah. So I assume that that's probably what they're referring to.
Yeah, I mean, probably using some kind of add-ons too. All right, well, thanks everyone for listening to that, and hopefully you learned something. And we have the rest of the time today, which is an hour and 15 minutes, for networking.
Thanks, David.
Thank you.
Back down to the old Apple TV?
Oh, they have the old ones.
Does anybody in here like old 80s video games? Like Galaga, Joust, Tempest?
Yeah, there's a whole
all that?
retro group.
Have you read a book called Ready Player One?
Heard of it?
Yeah. It's by
It is-
an author here in town, actually.
Is it? I didn't know. My husband and I just finished the audiobook that was read by Will Wheaton. And it's really awesome. It's called Ready Player One.
Is it fiction?
Yes, it's fiction. And you were talking about the virtual reality things that Control Mobile is doing, and Steven Spielberg actually has signed on to direct the movie based on the book, and it's due out December 2017. But it's a really awesome book.
That's a
I
strange
highly
movie.
recommend
It has to do
you
with
read
like
the
old
book.
gaming culture, like 80s gaming.
Yeah, it's set in 2045, and the whole world uses this online gaming system called the Oasis, and it's kind of like Destiny meets Sims sort of thing. And there are thousands upon thousands of planets that you can visit. Like, there's a whole Star Trek universe that is all of the planets and all of the stuff in Star Trek. There's a whole Star Wars universe. There's an entire planet called Arcade that's based on all the old arcade games, and it is a wild trip. So I highly recommend it if you like those old video games and you like a good Hero Quest. It's good. And Will Wheaton does a good job if you like the audiobook.
Interesting.
Sorry.
So is it like VR then, in the book?
In the world that they create, what they do is they put on like a visor, the way he describes it, and you put on these what they call haptic gloves, which you can use to move your avatar around in the world. But the really high end, you can buy an entire haptic suit that covers your whole body, and you get into this like haptic chair, and so everything that you do, you can move your whole body. So I'm really curious what they're gonna do in the movie and how that's gonna show, but
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah, on the Tech Table podcast about virtual reality, they said there's a company that makes like a two-directional treadmill that you can like walk on, and you have the VR headset, so you can like walk around in the room, and the treadmill will like move around. So you're like,
I
That's
saw that
what
at a
it
gaming conference here
does,
in
yeah.
town,
Yeah.
actually. They have a little ball on your shoe where
We're
you can track
almost
like
there.
where you're walking.
That's cool. But there's probably like still like a gravitation, like you still like feel the ground moving under you, right?
Well, the one I saw, you were sort of like, you have like a belt, like a weight belt, and you were kind of attached to it so you wouldn't fall.
Okay.
And you have like the Oculus
That makes
Rift on or
sense.
whatever.
Oh
and
yeah, I
run
think you
around
would
for-
fall if like you're trying to
Yeah.
walk and then like the ground is moving under you the other way.
In the book, no matter where you go, when you're on the one that he describes, it goes with you. He even uses it as a workout thing at one point. But the guy that created the system, he dies, and in his will, he says, whoever can find my Easter egg, you get like $250 billion or something like that. So everybody in the world is on this Easter egg hunt trying to find the egg. So it's good for those of us that remember that 80s stuff.
So 250 billions, that's probably not much in year
2045, right?
I don't know, it's still $250 billion.
Yeah, it should be good.
You're right, though, by then it would probably be.
That's
Well, at least inflation's low right now.
cool. You want to know any other events happening in Austin worth recommending?
What is that Lunch and Learn on?
It's mobile user experience
Mobile events.
design. So kind of what we do when we have kind of a project where we're starting from the real beginning, we come up with some different ideas for what some like people might like get use out of, and then make paper prototypes or click-through prototypes of the different features, and then kind of find some volunteers and put this prototype in front of them and ask them, you're trying to do this task, can you show us how you would do that? And then watch them as they do the task, and then you can see how they did it, maybe if they got stuck somewhere, that, and then you learn from that how you should change your prototype so it lets people do the tasks they're trying to do easier. And then there's also, Daniel has a bunch of different like brainstorming tactics to like think about the different ways of doing things, and also like really understanding why people or what people want from an app. Yep.
Yeah, I came in a little late. So what is this event?
So this is the iPhone developer group.
No, I'm talking about the one.
The lunch. Yeah, so the
Yeah,
lunch.
lunch.
Yeah, so lunch and learn. Jackrabbit is hosting a lunch and learn next Tuesday. It's going to be here at Capital Factory, and there's going to be a lunch provided, and we're also going to have a talk and a little workshop on how you kind of plan your app and how it should be before you even start development. Just figuring out what users want and what's going to get people to use your app.
Time?
I believe it's 11:30, but I will send out the Eventbrite schedule and link for you to RSVP in the Meetup group email. So as long as you're signed up for our Meetup group on meetup.com, you'll get that. But yeah, it's kind of interesting or different that we have less people today. Like usually, we've probably got twice as many people.
Because of the holidays.
Yeah.
It's not called the Lean Product Playbook, is it?
No, it is.
Because I was looking on Eventbrite. I thought I got an email about it.
Let's see, it's called Mobile UX Maximizing Return on Investment. Tuesday the 12th at 11:30.
Oh,
Did any of y'all go to the Austin Apple TV Tech Talks? Nope. That was I think 2 weeks ago. There was Apple came to Austin. They had a day of presentations from their evangelists about the Apple TV, and it was interesting. And then we had a ton of people from around Texas that came into Austin, and got to meet them and talk about Apple TV stuff. And
Did you go?
Yeah.
How was it?
Cool. I've never been to WWDC, so I'm told it's a very similar experience, just one day. So it was good, like nice experience, And everyone's really excited about the Apple TV, but no one really knows what app to make.
And you had your Apple TV
Talk,
before that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's the hackathon go? Sorry.
Good. Yeah. We had 6 groups, I believe, that finished app and presented, and the one team that won the Apple TV prize, they built a Space Invaders game, and the other group that won built
Easter egg? 250 million.
Yeah.
I wish.
And the other team, they built an app for companies to use if they have like a bunch of different Apple TVs across their office, where they can use WordPress to put stuff on the Apple TVs. So if you have like announcements or things like that you want to display, you can use WordPress, which a lot of companies have, to display, to set, put information on Apple TVs. And so there's WordPress has a built-in kind of API JSON mode that you can put in. So they use that to find information. So you basically just create a post, you set the permission to be that Apple TV, and then that Apple TV logged into your WordPress.
Okay.
But it was really easy to set up. So.
Did you see Parse just launched their Apple TV kit?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
WatchOS.
Yeah. Parse has a Watch and Apple TV frameworks now set up, and so does Crashlytics. So and then most of the big open source libraries where it makes sense now also support Apple TV.
Is there a simulator for Apple TV?
Yeah. So the Xcode 7 has, I think it's like 7.1 or 7.2 has the Apple TV simulator. Yeah. And you can even hook up or you can connect Apple TV remote with Bluetooth to your computer and then use it as a remote. So you don't have to have the Apple TV with you at all times if you're developing.
Is anyone here really excited about the Apple TV? I know everybody was excited about the watch. I
Yeah.
see you might have one
Yeah.
there, but
Yeah.
there don't seem to be many. I don't know.
No, I think I
users.
am excited, and it's also I mean, I don't know how much the actual number is yet, but I'm not surprised that not everyone has an Apple TV yet, right? Because with like the iPad was also, like, I'm not expecting the Apple TV to be iPhone level, market penetration, but if it does like iPad levels, then it'd be like the leading platform.
What would be, my husband and I we're having this discussion about whether to get one or not, and we're trying to figure out what does it do that the Xbox One does not? Because we can already do Netflix and all that stuff through the Xbox One.
There's Roku, and there's Chromecast,
Yeah.
or there's so many different things.
Can you
I mean, other than I develop
Yeah.
stuff.
I think
Just that.
I think it's there's not much reason if you already have an Xbox to get an Apple TV. So it's more for the people who don't have an Xbox,
Okay.
which is the majority of people don't have an Xbox. Even though like a very large percent of people do, but more people don't have
Well,
one.
most people are gaming nerds.
So even with the Xbox One, you can do all the streaming from the various content providers?
Oh yeah.
HBO Go, Stars,
Okay.
Yeah.
Showtime.
Which is
Netflix,
the big
Amazon.
reason why you want to get an Apple TV. It's like all this media stuff. But then there's a bunch of really interesting apps that there's one app that lets you watch like classical music orchestras, and you can like see each of. It has like different ways of visualizing at the same time. So they have like a video of it, and you can also browse the notes as they're going by. And then there's also like kind of like a Guitar Hero mode where you can like see the notes going by like it's Guitar Hero.
Oh, wow.
That's cool.
And then there's kind of a lot of like augmented media apps that will show you information like information about what you're watching. So there's like the MLB app.
Oh, sweet. That's sweet. That's really sweet.
Mhm.
That's
Everything's
cool.
like pop-up video. There's little bubbles that pop up.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And then, and then there's like social TV apps for people. Some people are really into like tweeting and watching TV. So there's like ways where you can like watch Twitter
Maybe like
with the TV.
While you're watching TV.
like Kim Kardashian or something. probably a bunch of tweets
Yeah.
that while like the episode was coming on.
Yeah, yeah. And kind of the big thing to remember is like TV is such a big part of people's leisure time that even if you can get something that's just entertaining for like 1 hour a month for a lot of people, then that's an app worth building. Especially since with the Apple distribution, it's just like the App Store almost. It's very easy to download apps. You can't link to them, which is a big kind of problem right now, that you can't like link to a download of an Apple TV app because there's no browser on the Apple TV, and there's no like real iOS to Apple TV store integration. So that's kind of still missing, but still, if someone wants to download your app, they just type in the name in the App Store and they can download it.
You said WebKit. WebKit's not in Apple TV.
Right. Yeah, no WebKit.
So no one's making a browser.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think if you made a browser, you'd probably not get that approved. Because you could make a browser because you can access the web, and you can even parse HTML on tvOS. It's just like with intending to display it is probably going to not get you approved.
Is there a reason why there's no browser?
Because it's a really bad experience using the web on a TV.
Doesn't that mean that it seems like there's like a wide open market for somebody to come and make something that works well? Like I got a PS3, and you can watch YouTube. They have like the apps, but we never really do because the browser and doing those things are so clunky that it just doesn't make any sense to do it.
I know for myself and a couple other people, where you just have like a computer, like you have a computer just connected to HDMI to like a TV, and you kind of use a keyboard type of situation. It's just a really big screen.
Yeah.
And a keyboard is much more beneficial than the interface to interact with for Apple TV.
Yeah.
That was frustrating.
Well, but now they've updated the remote app so that.
Oh, so you can use the keyboard on your phone?
Yeah. So if you have
that's
you have the
nice.
remote app on your phone, and then you can actually control the Apple TV now from your phone, or if you're browsing on the remote, if you go to a text field, your phone will vibrate and give you a text box to enter on your phone, and it like immediately shows up on the TV. So
How does it communicate?
how did those two communicate? Combination of Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
I didn't get them to connect because I tried that like 2 weeks ago. I didn't try that one.
So you open the remote app on your phone, and then you go to your settings on the Apple TV, and somewhere in there's like a remote or
It had to be on the same Wi-Fi network too.
yes, I believe so, probably. So I was at home, so they were on the same network, and from there you just say add a remote, and then it'll display a code that you enter on your phone when they're connected.
So can you stream video that you've got, that you recorded on your phone through an Apple TV to your TV, or?
Yes, yeah. So if you like record a video on your phone camera, then yeah, definitely. There's the Photos app works really well. You can use the Photos app here, and kind of if you just AirPlay, so that'll work even on this Apple TV. So video and photo, those have been supported for a while already by Apple. But yeah, but the new app is kind of the new Apple TV, kind of the big benefit is going to be all these iOS developers can now just make an app, whatever they want, they can make it. And so and then people are going to be getting the Apple TV. I mean, the Apple TV right now has more sales than the Chromecast and the Roku box.
Really?
Partially because it's been around longer, but still the sales are more than double the lifetime sales. But it's also been, the Apple TV has been around as long as the iPhone, but it's never been open.
What about Fire TV?
Yes, so that's Amazon's thing. I don't know what their sales are, but probably also the smaller just because it's newer. They had like the Fire Stick. Yeah.
For the stick, then they have the box. I don't have either of them, but I've been seeing it around.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing an interesting thing like Netflix. Like I feel like Netflix was a pioneer of making their own content and like how things are going. So now Amazon's doing the same thing. They're gonna have their own content. I don't know. People see some of the TV stations pulling back their content from Netflix and other ones so that they can do their own version as well. So like whoever owns like the rights to Star Trek, they're gonna pull back and do a Star Trek only online thing for their TV network. So I don't know. See Apple probably.
And the CBS and the Jerks.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could've been
Which
awesome.
which I think, I mean, Apple knows that, so I think.
Yes,
I
they're
think,
gonna maybe do the same thing.
Yeah.
If they wanna
maybe-
push their Apple TV, then make their own content exclusive for that.
Yeah. Or they push the Apple TV to get lots of users, and then, you know, then the TVs will want to get that revenue. Because people will watch something else if it's not available.
Does anybody know if they're gonna come out with, or if it's gonna happen to where like you buy a movie and you just own it, like you can access it from any device, you don't have to buy it on iTunes and then buy a DVD and then rent it on Amazon and all of these different places
On
where you
Amazon,
can.
you can buy them. You can buy digital.
Buy digital, yeah, but you can't then access it anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm tired of buying things multiple times.
Yeah, that's true.
I bought a movie like recently, last 2 weeks ago. Let's Be Cops. Something it was that movie. And with the DVD, it said you can go like and download it, stream it online, pretty much with the purchase of the DVD.
I bought a new gun Xbox recently. I forget what movie it was, but it was just like, it was a movie that wasn't on Netflix or anything, and you own it, you have the rights to watch it whenever. You can download it again. I think they have, do they not offer that on Apple TV anymore? Used to be, that was the only way to get it, right?
So I think with iTunes, usually you can't download it again.
Okay.
But there is the iTunes Match service.
Do you remember, originally wasn't that the only way to watch on Apple TV was rent or buy,
Yeah.
when it first came out?
Hmm.
I
You
don't
can
know.
turn on home sharing and watch whatever's on your computer.
Yeah,
It was
we do
whatever
that.
was attached to your iTunes account, right? But you could
Yeah.
buy on the device, right?
I'm just looking forward to the day when it's all, everything that, all the movies that we own are in some cloud database somewhere and you can just access it anywhere and you don't have to have a bunch of CDs and DVDs and thumbsticks and hard drives.
I think Amazon works pretty well for that. Like, they have almost every movie that you can buy, and I think they have like a cloud player where you can stream it after you buy it, or you can download it.
I know this is gonna sound dumb, but if you use the Bing search on Xbox One, it searches all the apps on your
That has
Xbox,
never
like
worked for me.
Amazon,
Ever.
Vudu, Xbox Video, Netflix. It
I
searches
must be
across
searching for the
all.
wrong things.
Yeah, so Apple TV has that too, where you can say like play this show, and then
It'll tell you all the apps.
and then it'll
on it.
show you all the episodes, and then at the top and then below that it'll say like Netflix has these episodes,
I didn't know
Hulu
that.
has these episodes.
Sometimes that
Oh,
works
that's
very well,
nice.
Yeah.
but I find lots of times that even though I know I have it, it won't show up anywhere.
Yeah.
And I have to go, specifically
Mhm.
over into the movies, and get it there. It's kinda weird.
We were trying to watch Die Hard at my parents' for over Christmas break, and my dad was like, "I don't own Die Hard." What do you mean I don't? Because I went through every single one of his DVDs. I'm like, "Dad, you don't own it. Sorry." He couldn't believe it. He's bought it. He's like, "I must have the VHS." I'm like, "Do you have a VHS player?" No, nobody does anymore.
Up until about 6 months ago, you couldn't get Star Wars digitally anywhere.
Unless you have the originals on Laserdisc.
Or I meant streaming. I meant
Sorry. Nerd. Nerd.
Just also, like sound
You had
music and
that
stuff. It's like
physical.
people that like can't make up their mind whether or not they want to be like available for streaming stuff. And like what was it, Beatles recently? They're all like on everything.
Yeah, they're finally on Spotify.
Yeah.
Beatles is on like SoundCloud. It's
Oh,
on
I heard about that.
Amazon Music, and I don't know. I think the way of the future is that there's going to be so much stuff on services that you just subscribe to it. You own less of those things. The troubles of trying to recall your data from somewhere or own a disc will be maybe.
Yeah, I don't think I've bought any media since for like at least 2 years. 'Cause you've got, cause I have Spotify, Netflix, and
Yeah.
Redbox.
YouTube.
Very few. And like,
YouTube.
like once, like I hadn't gone to an actual like a movie rental place in such a long time. I decided to go do that. All of the discs skipped and had scratches and stuff like that. And they refund your money, but it's like, well, if it's gonna be an easier time for me just to go and download it somewhere and stream it than it is to
Yeah.
go and actually rent it.
Saves you a trip to the store too.
Yeah.
Well, Redbox makes that a whole lot easier.
Yeah, I have a Redbox 200 feet from my apartment, so.
Well, that's nice.
Do you use it?
Yeah, all the time.
Didn't they have a streaming service for a while, or do they still? Redbox, like the Netflix competitor?
I don't know. I haven't seen it. Because they wouldn't, the kind of the advantage of Redbox is they have new releases.
Yeah.
Because they're on DVD.
Are they still $1?
No, I think they're $150 or something, and Blu-rays two something.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they raised the prices to get more, to get better, or like more new releases. Because they were like the lower price, they were having to wait like 2 weeks, and I think they now got it earlier. So where they like renegotiate where they get them 2 weeks earlier, but then they cost more.
You also gotta pay the guy that's inside the box.
You can still sign up for Netflix by mail, right? DVD.
Yeah, they have that.
Oh, they still do that.
Yeah, that was great for when bandwidth was slower, because you couldn't like.
Well, they didn't offer streaming at first, didn't they?
Yeah. But for a while, my family had both, so we'd still use the mail because if you like want to watch something,
Yeah, their
it's still
library was like slim too at the beginning.
yeah.
They're installing AT&T Uverse in my neighborhood.
Mhm.
The big pipe is run across my backyard. I'm like, please just put it in the ground.
Yeah.
Fiber.
Yeah, I got the fiber too. It's,
You guys have Google Fiber down here.
No, I have Uverse fiber too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
My whole neighborhood, except for my block, doesn't have Google Fiber.
Doesn't? So you do? So you do?
No, the other way around.
Yeah,
My
Everybody
building.
has it but you.
Yeah, my building does not, but everywhere around does. I think that, I'm in a condo complex, and we had a very zealous person on our board, and I believe that has something to do with it.
Ah.
Run a really long cable to somebody else's place.
So I was actually looking forward to the Google Fiber.
I had it in Kansas City, and it was great. When I lived in Kansas City, I had it, and it was great.
Yeah? Wasn't that the very first one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Kansas City, home of the internet. Right. That was our joke.
That's about right now.
One thing I hoped for with the fiber is that like Google Earth would load faster. Like I thought that would be a thing, but Google Earth isn't really any faster. I think it's like the server side is not fast. Doesn't serve fast enough.
AT&T's they like advertise it as like 100 or they say
1,000.
1,000.
I think it's 1,000 megabit per second because we have 300 right now.
No, but it's like it's really gigabits, so it's like 256 megabytes download. But they
Yeah,
yeah.
a megabit is different than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gigabyte. Yeah, it's a gigabyte.
But they say GB, like on
Oh, yeah.
advertising everywhere,
With capital
so
B.
that it looks
Yeah.
the same as Google Fiber, and they use the same number.
Oh,
but
Google's
like,
fiber is
1,000.
8 megabit then, or 8 gigabit?
Yeah.
I thought it was just megabit. Or I thought it's just. I think Google's also 1
Same.
gigabit. Yeah.
They're just using the capital B and they shouldn't.
Yeah, sure. Or at least that's what I thought. But yeah, I might be wrong. I gotta look into Google Fiber now.
Yeah, I think Google Fiber is also gigabit,
Yep.
which is confusing.
So when you were doing the Google Fiber, did you ever do the speed test?
Where it'll be like,
Yeah.
this is
And I
30
mean,
megabits,
yeah,
so
you
you
can
can
get
download
like
30 megabytes per
250
second.
Yeah, that doesn't make
Okay.
sense.
Because what matters is whatever server you're connecting to has to be able
1,000
to dish out data.
megabits.
Right, it's like, you're buying a Ferrari, but we don't have
For,
an autobahn around here
yeah,
to
yeah,
take it up
exactly.
150 or.
Yeah, I was wondering if you were really seeing anything.
But,
Yeah,
it was
that's
great.
pretty
Your
cool.
YouTube videos don't buffer, they're just completely
Yeah.
loaded.
Yeah, 4K
And torrent
instantly.
a movie, trilogy in 15 minutes.
Xcode updates weekly.
Yeah. Nice. Your GIFs load
Oh.
instantly.
Oh, and games?
Yes.
Games?
It's the small thing.
That
you
actually
wish.
brings me, I have a question about that. Is anybody experiencing the error where you see the little red dot on the top 2 places, but it doesn't show up anywhere along the line numbers? I don't have any idea what line number my errors are anymore, ever since 7.2.
I have not seen that. That would be a problem. That would be a problem.
I've seen that too, actually. Sometimes you just gotta scroll. If you,
I've
if
closed
you
it
double
down
click
and opened it
you
back
double
up.
click- No, I mean just scrolling up and down the file.
Yeah.
Does it
Most
shoot
of the time I
navigator?
just scroll as fast as I can,
Does it
and you
shoot
can
navigator?
see it
Like say
sometimes there.
exactly what line?
Also building sometimes,
Yeah, like
it'll
to
show an
build.
error,
Says
but it
like-
won't actually
like
display
it-
until you build.
Pretty sure in like the long description it says.
So if you try and build, even when there's a red, it'll say build failed, but then it'll show you what line it's on.
It's crazy.
Cause it'll say you have an optional that you need to fix, and I'm like, you tell me what line number it's on, or I have no clue.
Yeah.
Sometimes too, if you double click
Sometimes I
the
can.
error or the
Review all yours.
Yeah,
Yeah,
alert,
Yeah,
sometimes
I've got
if
to
you
do
click the
pop-ups.
error,
Like
it works,
when
but
it's
not
like-
always.
It's just
Ugh.
blanket error. Like, here you go.
I think they've been kind of slacking on
I
the
actually put in a trouble
team
ticket
because
on
it's
it.
been, Xcode 7 has not been all that
I actually
had
did a
hoped
bug
for.
report.
I
My
think
first
Apple
bug
in
report.
general, unfortunately, has been kinda going down. I mean, I used to always tout, Apple products, their quality and they're so intuitive, most of the time I tell people, unlike Windows land for the
It
most
just
part,
works.
just try whatever makes sense and typically it works. But, I've been a little disappointed in some of the things I've been seeing, the last couple of years with Apple's products and software and such. And I'm hoping that there's gonna be a turnaround soon. Cause I really hate seeing that.
You're not the
I find
first
when-
person I've heard say that.
I find when Apple ever does a service, they usually sucks.
Yeah.
But their software for like an operating system and their hardware is still great. Just
I'm
whenever they
seeing-
do like an Apple Music or
Or like iOS
iTunes
9, I'm
Connect.
seeing a lot of weird artifacts and such.
They gotten better.
And even on the Mac, there, some things in the mail that, have worked for years just aren't quite working anymore. and,
oh yeah,
Stuff like that.
I never really used mail, so I wouldn't.
But the reminders thing, the way they have this little hover bar, when you're trying to
Oh,
add something.
I don't like it.
You
I
know,
don't
it's
like
like.
those.
It's
it
buggy
doesn't-
for
it
you
doesn't
too?
work. It's very buggy. Yeah.
I love that app, and ever since the last couple of updates, it does that now,
Yeah.
and they haven't fixed it yet.
Yeah, there's something wrong with my keychain. I had 46 gigs of keychain files.
Good
Oh
lord.
my god.
Oh, man. Did you
Yeah,
figure that
that's
one out?
something wrong.
That's
a gold mine there.
Your password's a video.
Quantum computing.
Fort
that
Knox.
has private keys.
Yeah, I don't know what caused that. And I found the files, and I deleted all of the files in that folder other than the newest one, because I was like, I can't have 46 gigs of files. I'll just fix whatever breaks. And then it's worked fine after deleting every file except one like 20 megabyte file in that folder.
You weren't locked out stuff? You weren't locked out of things?
No, it was the newest. I just took the newest file and didn't delete it, and just deleted all the old
Was this on
files.
your Mac or on your iOS?
On my Mac. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You got lucky.
Yeah.
Well, I use 1Password for most of my passwords.
Yeah.
So
I use
keychain
numbers.
mostly just like
Yeah, maybe 1Password just had a bug and just threw up all over your keychain.
that could be, sabotage the keychain.
Yeah.
Don't use keychain.
I have a quick question, kind of change the subject. Has anyone used, was it the core Bluetooth model, with iOS programming or?
Briefly.
Briefly?
Yeah. I've used it somewhat extensively for beacons.
Yeah. I'm trying to connect it, I don't know if you guys connect it with an Arduino or Intel Edison, anything like that. Having some slight problems trying to figure it out. So I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Another thing I'm interested is in doing 3D rendering on the iOS app. So I know you can use SpriteKit or like Unity. I don't know if anybody did any type of 3D rendering or game type of idea. On the iOS
Metal?
app. What's the best?
I've done SpriteKit, but
SpriteKit?
everything I did was 2D. I'm not sure if SpriteKit.
SpriteKit handles 3D too.
It does?
Mhm.
Okay.
The Space
I've done some of that.
Invaders
I've just done
It's
a
a
small
simulated
app.
3D, right?
8-bit.
Well, here's like a little, I was working with some 3D printer stuff, and I made just like a little model of a car.
Oh.
This is all in spray kit.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And it's honestly maybe 120 lines of code for that.
Okay.
I mean, it's real short.
Okay.
I'll, give me your email later and I'll mail you some stuff to get you started or something.
Alright, cool.
Yeah, and then there's OpenGL,
OpenGL.
which is like for writing code for the.
Yeah, that's more
graphics card.
cross-platform, right? If I did an iOS, OpenGL is also.
Yeah, so, yeah, it's kind of built to be supported on multiple, but the code's pretty readable for iOS.
Well, if you're gonna be doing iOS, probably just stick with Metal.
Yeah, so Metal is the new thing,
Yeah.
which is,
What is metal?
it's a.
That was one of the
3D.
rendering, like,
Yeah,
graphics.
nice.
I think it's like
Framework.
OpenGL for iOS
Yeah.
specifically.
Right.
It's like Apple's version.
So it's a language?
Yeah.
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 Machiners, I think.
It's just OpenGL, even though it's very portable, can be very, very convoluted.
Yes.
And I spent about 3 months hardcore, nose down, OpenGL, and after 3 months, tossed the book aside, said never again.
Yeah.
It's intense, yeah.
You gotta be really good at linear algebra for that.
Yeah.
That's not my forte.
So y'all are all talking about just developer platforms, are there graphics specific, like related to that? Like tell me in like a nutshell what Sprite Kit is, what Metal is.
Sprite Kit is, what you use to make games.
It's like a game
It's like-
framework, it's like a
right.
framework API.
Right, like it has all these concepts of objects, such as like a scene or.
Okay, so it's like a coding developer sort of platform related to graphics though?
It's
related to
Apple's.
games.
Like game engine?
So that you don't have to create everything from scratch,
Is
like
it
to put a
Apple's?
pixel
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
That's nice.
There, it's to,
Yeah, so it's.
I know we used it for Space Invaders.
With Sprite Kit, you can,
To the
you
extent
can,
of knowledge.
basically in your code, you can say like, make a scene with these properties and then put this object in the scene and then give this object acceleration and then if it hits something, give it this bounce. And you basically
Okay.
just define all the stuff you want. And then, you know, if the user has some kind of inputs, then you can change the state of the scene. But the scene can do stuff by itself just based on what happens to it.
and a scene being like a level.
Okay, so kind of like, it's like a cross between like a game engine and like animation sort of?
It is a game engine, that's what it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't come from a developing background, I come from I like playing games.
I was
but
having a
hardcore.
hard time describing it, because you
Yeah.
mentioned you weren't a developer, I was having a hard time.
Yeah, but I wanna know like where to get my feet in, I don't wanna go and try to like learn some esoteric thing that has nothing to do with what I'm interested in doing, I guess.
Yeah, like if you're wanting to do games, like, yeah, learning Sprite Kit or Coco S2D are the two popular ones.
What was the other one?
Coco S2D, so it existed for a long time as the, sort of game engine.
Okay.
What about the Unity 2D?
I haven't used it.
Okay, cause I,
That's
I
another-
know
that's
that's
another
been pretty
popular one,
popular.
Unity.
And then Apple created Sprite Kit a couple years ago. I used it when it first came out, I haven't used it since.
They may have made Sprite Kit as a wrapper of Coco 2D, but I don't recall exactly. But
Yeah,
you might be
very
able to call some of the
similar.
lower level stuff.
There's,
I'm really early in the thing, I need to just know the names to go to research those kinds of
Yeah.
things, figure out. if I'm-
the RayWinderlick.com has, Ray, I think it's R-A-Y, and then Wenderlich is Wender L-I-C-H. It's pretty much how I.
Oh, yeah, he's fantastic. He's-
Wenderlich. And the tutorial that he has for Space Invaders was what we used as the jumping off point to make our game for the hackathon.
Okay.
So and there's a subscription thing for the ones that aren't free, and I subscribe to that because they have
Oh, okay.
great tutorials on core
So it's like a
data.
pay service for tutorials?
Some of it is, some of it's free, some of it's paid, but their free stuff is really good.
Yeah.
And you said you like art as
Yeah,
well?
I'm-
So his wife is Vicky, and so they're, you know,
Whose
so
wife?
he's kinda on
Ray-
the
Ray
iOS
Winderlich?
train.
Oh, Ray Winderlich.
And Ray Winderlich's wife named Vicky, she does a lot of the artwork and everything, and so she
No
kinda has
kidding.
some of her own stuff.
Cool.
I didn't know that.
Alright.
Interesting.
Power company.
Yeah, I love Ray Winderlich's
Rubber
stuff.
Yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it
Except
helped me kinda get started.
I'm stuck on a core data bug and I can't figure it out.
Use Realm. heard of Realm? It's like layer
No,
on top
like,
alternative to core data, because core data
and I
sucks.
would be into that, but the app that I'm just about to finish, like, I have a new contact page and the save button works great. I can save the data. My edit page, I cannot get the save button to work, no matter what I try. I must have tried 20, 30 different iterations of swizzling the code around and trying different things, and I cannot get it to work. I'm hardcore stuck.
So how are you?
That's what I was gonna ask you about.
So, so you have an object in your manage object context, right? And when you edit it, do you like isolate it or something?
When it goes from, it's a master detail application, and it goes from the detail page to the edit contact page, and so the detail page passes it via a segue to the edit page, and it populates the fields, and it sends it from the detail page to the edit page, and it populates the fields just fine. And the cancel button of course works, but the save button, it makes the app crash. So there's something.
Past the manage object. The NS manage object subclass.
I passed the core data stack, which may or may not be the same thing.
Yeah,
I'm kind of fuzzy on that. The
Yeah.
core data stack houses the managed object context.
Yeah, so what like a common problem with something like that would be that the managed object context is deallocated, but you're still a pointer to the managed object. And then you're like playing around with the managed object, and then you like try to save it, and it doesn't have a context anymore, and that crashes it.
I'm gonna check that out.
It's possible, it could also.
But
show
core
up
data
on the
actually,
screen.
like, it's really good for something like this, because you can, for example, you can create a child context now. It's
Mhm.
one of the newer versions. And so you can create a child context, and you can, you can create your edit page and make all your changes and save it in that child context. And then if someone decides, oh, never mind, then they just hit cancel, and you throw away your child context, and your actual managed object context isn't affected.
From experience, we also learned that saving the child context does not mean that it is saved in core data. You must save it in the parent context as well.
Yeah. That makes sense. So when and so if you had like 2 levels down, you have to save.
Right.
You save, when you save the child, it merges into the parent, right? And then, but then it's only in memory. You have to save the parent to actually save it to disk.
Yeah, that's a frightening bug that I've had before, just to like tear my hair out, like I know I made the command, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think I am.
Is there such a thing as open source for some of the iPhone apps? I mean, is there like a good place to find that source code?
Yes, there's a company called Artsy, and they have an Apple TV app, they have an iPhone app, they have some iPad apps, and what their company, the products that they have are all art galleries or apps for art galleries to display their art, and they do everything open source. So when they put a new feature, they put it up on GitHub and say we want to work on this feature next. And when they have their meeting, they put their meeting notes on GitHub for the entire company. And they have really like a bunch of the people that work for them also work on the CocoaPod project.
Cool.
So they're a really smart team, and they put all their code on GitHub for their production apps.
No. How do you spell the company name?
Artsy, ARTSY. So yeah, I used them a bunch for when I was just getting started with Apple TV, because there wasn't much like sample code or anything. Because I think Apple, I guess, is maybe their sample code isn't actually the best. So they're like, maybe we don't do any sample code. And so I looked on GitHub and found, I saw that they had an Apple TV app from Artsy, so I looked at what they did, and so for certain things that I wanted to do.
Yeah, Apple was the same way with Watch. Like I felt like I didn't even understand how companies came out with apps like day one. How did you figure out how to It's like horrible documentation. Not horrible, but like missing pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I noticed that too, look on, watch out.
And it was like,
And
you're only
then-
like 80% there, and like, now you're just like, figure it
Well,
out.
'cause they're changing it so much too, like.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. Well, and they were also working with some companies under the table.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and they have really tight deadlines.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Internally.
WatchOS 2 seems much better though.
Yeah, but launching apps is still longer
Yeah.
than I would want to even use the apps for.
So I haven't looked at anything on Swift updates in the last couple of weeks on Swift.org. Anything interesting happen?
Since 2.0?
No, just the last couple of
They
weeks.
open sourced it?
Uh,
Nothing.
IBM has a lot of interest, doing a lot of interesting stuff,
As-
Swift on the web.
Yeah.
Has anyone watched South Park?
Mm.
No? No,
They
there's
talk
a-
about it on there.
Well,
Really?
there was an episode. There was an episode this season of South Park that was like there was new principles of PC Bro, and he was politically correct and like this major like frat guy, and like takes over. So there's PC Bro, and then it like turned into like the big viral thing. And there was someone who made a GitHub account named PC Bro, and like submitted a pull request like for changes, and like went in and was just made everything politically correct and sent open source, like everything that's like the normal paradigms, like changed like master slave to leader follower. And it was really, and Apple accepted it and merged it. It was hilarious. He's gone around and done that to like a bunch of different like really big repos, and it's just, I mean, I don't know who the guy is that takes the time each day to like find politically correct things to fix in code, but he's out there. PC Bro is out there. PC Bro.
Yeah, so next week, the IBM Swift Sandbox team is going to presenting at the Cocoa Coders Meetup here at Capital Factory.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, so it's Thursday, January 14th.
And which meetup is this?
Cocoa Coders Meetup.
I didn't know that one was announced yet. I knew they were looking at doing it, but I
Yeah.
didn't know it had finalized.
Yeah, it looks like they announced it. They announced it about a month ago, actually. That's this one. Which will be good. Yeah, that's very interesting. So that's basically enabling Swift for non-iOS Mac platforms. And I think specifically with the idea of using it for backend, right?
Yes, sir.
Server-side
Saw a couple
scripting, right?
libraries. Interesting.
How come that was never done with Objective-C, like nobody ever created?
Because the runtime is the runtime not open source?
Well,
Oh,
so
it
now
wasn't.
people
I was
have
thinking it
access
was
to,
with
or
like Next Step.
now people also have
Yeah, I
access
think
to the
some
Swift
of it was.
compiler too.
Oh, okay.
So you can do a lot more with that if you know more lower level stuff.
'Cause that'd be pretty cool to
Yeah.
do Objective-C on for server-side scripting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cause it's like so different than JavaScript, like for a lot of things, in a better way.
Yeah. Somebody writes like a
I've
Swift
never
on
done-
Rails type
Yeah.
hybrid, like.
Yeah, I've never done any server-side JavaScript, but
I mean, it's good because it's simple to use, but yeah, Node. But I just often run into errors where I can't like print, like I can't debug it very easily.
I feel like using a newer thing of technology like that would be tough to find a solution to your problem too. I suppose like using a PHP or Ruby on Rails stuff. I've just never dealt much with that.
Yeah, I mean, like the issue I run into is like I wanna, if I like have an object that's coming out of a method somewhere and it's not doing what I wanna like be able to print properties,
Oh, like-
and it like
Object.
yeah, it just says like object and like that, like
Oh, yeah, okay, I know
thanks.
what you're talking
So
about.
the kind of the object description is not useful. That's
You ever seen the talk on JavaScript that Batman, like, no.
No.
Oh, it's such a good talk. Just on like how JavaScript
Also-
does some really weird things, like
Yeah.
when you like add like empty array plus object, and like it comes out as like 0, and like going through all these scenarios.
Yeah, and then there's like different operators for like something being undefined or not set, or like 0 or nil or false. Like those are all different things where you know, Objective-C, those are like pretty much the same. Like not set, undefined, nil, 0, no. Those are like pretty much treated the same for operators, or when you're operating on them, like booleans or something. But with JavaScript, there's like different operators for like, with a certain operator 0 equals no, with another operator like no and 0 aren't equivalent, and
That's a nice
and undefined.
feature about Swift too, is that it kind of streamlined all of those to nil, null, and I don't, you can also use them for, you know, primitive types against and stuff.
And we don't have 2 bulls anymore.
In Swift?
Yeah.
No lowercase one, right? Yeah, I mean, Swift is pretty cool.
Do you do most of your projects in Swift now?
No, I use Objective-C.
Yeah, me too. I did one in Swift and I was like, oh, this is cool, but then I like got myself back into it. Next project I did, I went Objective-C the whole way.
Seems like a lot of companies too are kind of reluctant to go to Swift for some reason. I don't know why.
You end up, you know, using a lot of bridging, to use a lot of libraries that you have to use anyway, so.
Yeah.
Bridging isn't that, like, it's just adding an import statement though, like, once you have the bridging header, like, in terms of like complexity, like adding the next library, or you mean just in
I guess
the
what I'm
back
just
end,
trying to say is like one entire application is tough to be entirely.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Which isn't a terrible thing.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it's just like an extra thing you have to do is, like, or it makes things more difficult. Like if you want to hire more people, it's easier to find people that have Objective-C experience rather than Swift experience. And if you want to reuse code from an old project, or if you want to like remember, like, oh, I used this framework a while back. Oh, here I have a class that I can use a really similar thing in this new one. If it's already Objective-C, it's quicker.
I'm kind of finding in some of the things that I had written previously, because of Objective-C, you know, you did certain things a particular way. And by rewriting those in Swift, I'm finding it to be, you know, higher quality code, because I can do certain things in Swift that I couldn't necessarily do, like, you know, returning, you know, from functions, as far as, you know, if you have a function that's returning a number, but, you know, you got possible errors and different things that you want to capture from that, it's just so much easier in Swift than it was in C or Objective-C.
Returning tuples or whatever? When returning
Well,
tuples?
yeah, that's for one, you know, but, you know, in the way that error,
Nil handling.
yeah, I forgot what the particular term that they're using for
Nullability.
their throwing,
Hmm.
right? The way they throw errors and such, it's just, you know, it just makes things a lot easier. You know, and you're not having to, you know, pass by reference, you know, certain things.
Syntax is just much more brief too. I feel like my file, like, just size has gone down, and now like I use the system editor way more, because I feel like my Objective-C files were like this fat, right? But
The lines
now-
are too long?
Yeah, the lines are too long, and then I'm like, I either have to choose to like wrap and everything gets like jumbled, or I have to like scroll left to right in this like mini box. But now it's like everything fits in this like skinny column, which is nice.
That's nice, that's a zen feeling. Isn't it?
Yeah.
how did they used to use Objective-C when, before widescreens were normal? What did they do on 4x3?
That's why it hasn't been popular until recently.
Yeah. That's the one reason.
Apple was thinking ahead.
That was the boom.
I wouldn't have learned half the Xcode keyboard shortcuts I know when I wasn't developing
Yeah,
on like a 13-inch
never
laptop.
never
Window, like, just expanding and collapsing all these.
Google Glass, that kind of came out and came out with a bang and go away with a whimper. Is that kind of other people's take on?
They stopped production of it.
Oh, they did.
No, I think they revived it a little
Yeah,
bit for
so I
like
mean,
enterprise,
it's just a prototype, right? So
Yeah.
they, you know, only built a few thousand of them. And then,
Someone jumped out of a plane with one and went into a conference. Did you see the big debut?
No.
It was ridiculous. It was like the way they filmed it. Like someone their big event for like opening, someone like took it and like was skydiving with it and then like landed on the building and came in and went up on stage.
Oh yeah, it was at the Google
Yeah.
I/O.
Nice. That's pretty cool. At South by last year, the guy who runs Google X talked about like how it wasn't even meant to be a product, like it was just a test, and just the media talked about it a lot, and so then people's expectations got so big. But yeah, they realized when they started building them that it wouldn't be a consumer product, and that people don't want to have a big giant thing on their face.
I know a lot of people that were getting excited about it, writing all the various apps and such, and I thought that it was just, it was kind of pre-beta test type thing, and then they were gonna do a big launch the following year, but you just never hear anything anymore.
I think I did see like a patent application for a new version of the Google Glass from Google. So it seems like they are still working on it.
But
They
they
gave
even
two
got-
screens instead of one because it gives you kind of a headache if you're just looking at one.
Is Microsoft still doing anything with that HoloLens?
Man, I hope so. That thing looks awesome.
They look cool. But they went straight up like acting like it was gonna be consumer technology. First thing they show is Minecraft, right? When the first demo.
Yeah, so it's probably like probably the end product that people use doesn't even exist. I mean, it's probably like I think a watch actually makes more sense for a lot of things.
Well, I think a lot of it they were talking about was augmented reality, right? So you're constantly getting information about what it is that you're looking at, which,
But it's like a screen below you, so it's not actually above it, or is it using the camera?
It's kind of projects it almost right into the little glass that's over here. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like this one does not.
So it's like a heads-up display type thing?
It's like a heads-up display.
Yeah, man, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that would be really awesome for doctors or even mechanics,
So I was
Keeps your hands free where you're like.
I was getting my haircut a few weeks ago, and my barber was real excited. She was getting an Apple Watch because then she wouldn't have to pull out her phone while she's cutting people's hair. And still know if something important happened.
Yeah.
So the thought of just not having to pull out your phone in the wrong setting.
Yeah, I'm sure cooks like it too.
Yeah,
Their
I
hands
bet.
are dirty.
I didn't think of that. But that was the first time I've seen somebody who's genuinely had a real very productive use.
Well, I like being able to just leave my phone in my bag and not have to
That sounds
carry it around.
great. Just get the right. Probably saves your battery too, right?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, I want to get one. I just haven't gotten around to it yet.
Well, there's probably a new version coming out soon, because the first one, it's been almost a year, right? Yeah. Since this one came out.
March, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't announced anything yet, because they announced the original one, 2013? No, 14, 2004, end of 2014, so.
there's been rumors of the next one coming, but it's been a little bleak on
Yeah, they
the
just
feature side.
updated band colors.
I feel like they timed that wrong. If they would have done it right before holidays, they would have waited 6 months.
But I mean, they were doing the Apple TV
Oh yeah.
this year. But yeah, I think the Apple Watch was a pretty big seller this year.
For holidays.
What's that sound like for next month?
Not sure yet, so I'm looking for talks.
What's your email
Yeah, I
address?
mentioned one.
Yeah.
I'd like to do on ads. I'm doing programmatic ads, and
Yeah, that's a good one.
You do any IoT stuff?
So Jackrabbit, we built a app that integrates with a bunch of different IoT devices, like the Jawbone wristband, the Philips Hue lamps, the the Belkin switches, outlets, coffee makers.
That's with HomeKit?
No, not with HomeKit.
Okay.
Um,
Just Bluetooth?
yeah, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
Was that Yanami?
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool what you can do with just Bluetooth and Wi-Fi.
You said that's all stuff for just iOS though?
Th-
Like
that-
controlling like lights?
No, so those things, there's also an Android version.
Okay. How much do y'all know about what is it, Amazon Echo? Like any of those kinds of functions? I know that one of the things they do is they hook up to like smart lights and different things like that. And, I don't know, it's like a fairly new thing, so. I don't know.
Alexa?
What's that?
Alexa?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do they call the add-ons for that, the extensions or?
They call them, what are they, they are.
I didn't hear about them until the other day.
It's not an app, it's a skill. I think it's a skill.
Skill, that's it. Skill.
Yeah, so you
Or
specifically,
you
you
could
specifically
Siri
add
skills.
skills.
Yeah.
You add skills to it, like you go and look and see
Skills.
what's available, and then you enable it with the app, and then you can start speaking those things to it.
Yeah.
Like one of the skills that was on there is like a recipe thing. So you add the skill, and then you can ask it certain questions, like Alexa, tell me about Campbell's recipes for the day, and then it has the whole thing with it. You know, what you enable it.
How does it decide like which skill to use?
You enable them, like so you have
Maybe you
your
have
app.
two, like if you have like two recipe
Oh,
skills,
I
like
don't know,
you
I
have,
haven't
like
gotten
the
that- I
Chinese
haven't gotten
skills,
into that part.
the Italian skills, you're like,
Are they third
make
party?
noodles.
I think, like I said, I'm not from a developing background, so I know that there are people that can develop new things for it, and they're constantly adding new features. I don't know anything about
That
how
would
that
just,
stuff works.
that just kind of boggles my mind right now, thinking about if you could like write an extension for it, like how, like you said, how would it know to
Yeah.
interpret that using this extension versus, or this skill versus that skill?
Well, I think maybe at that point it would be like the specificity of what you're saying to it.
Yeah.
Like Alexa, tell me about Campbell's app or whatever. That was the one that I just sang
Yeah.
first, but.
Yeah, maybe like give me a recipe with this skill, like give me a recipe from food.com.
Right, I think it's like a food.com or a Campbell's soup company that wants to make a thing to go with it.
Right.
Because they're trying to sell soup, so every recipe that you get from it
I get it,
involves
yeah.
some kind
I
of soup
understand the
in it.
concept, I'm just like, under the hood,
It was like
how it all
natural
works.
language URLs.
Yeah, the natural language URL schemes.
Well, yeah, one of the things though that they talk about is like all of the lights and smart kind of technology that you can run with that I have none of those things, but it sounded really neat once they, become more like commonplace or.
Maybe you could use the watch, like maybe if you give it a command and then it's like, then like 4 icons show up on your watch and you just tap like the app that you meant to use, and then you go back to your using it.
But your hands are all dirty. They're covered.
It's all
Clothes,
speech,
you know,
it's all speech, it asks you questions, like it says, like the Campbell's app that I was just talking about, that's one that I played around with a little bit. It'll ask you, okay, well, what are you interested in? I've got recipes with meat, poultry, vegetarian, whatever, and you speak to it, and it's like, okay, out of the vegetarian options, do you want recipes that take under 30 minutes? Okay, you do, okay, here's the first recipe.
Yeah.
Do you want me to send it to you? Or do you want me to go to the next one? And so it's all speech based, I guess. I don't know how you differentiate between another recipe app.
Like
Sure is.
really old games,
What's that?
really old games. The ones where
Choose your own adventure.
it's just the text,
Oh,
back and
yeah.
forth.
Adventure.
And it does a pretty, I don't know, it does a pretty good job, so I have high hopes that it's gonna become more and more useful as time goes on.
Is it English only?
I don't know. I only speak English, so that's for me.
Yeah, Siri is bilingual or multilingual, so probably can do.
Siri has trouble with English. I don't, you know what I mean?
I would say out of all the speech stuff that I've used, this one's been the most accurate, but it still has funny things where it mishears you and doesn't understand what you're saying, or.
I just hate how you have to have a connection all the time.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying.
Because when I'm driving off in some place where I don't have a signal and when I want to use something hands-free.
Yeah. Well, this is more like a house kind of appliance.
Yeah,
almost.
the Echo.
People talk about, when
The
people
Echo
talk about
makes
it's
a lot of
become
sense.
very useful,
It's
like
above
keep it in their kitchen kind of area or, whatever. Wait, what were you talking about? Like, what are you hands-free?
Siri.
Oh, okay, Siri.
Like when I'm using Siri on the road to say, just call this person, and I say, sorry, I can't do that right
Oh,
now.
gotcha.
It's, you know, it's strong enough to have a signal, but yeah.
One of the things I think is funny whenever I use Siri to say, call my wife, and I say.
Which one?
I have had that. But it, and my wife actually heard that, and she was, hey! But it, I said to call my wife's mobile, and it said, calling, name, iPhone. And it very much emphasized iPhone at the end, and I thought that was kind of funny.
Somebody in Apple specifically had a ruckus and was like, make sure it says iPhone.
Yeah.
You guys look down on people who are texting you and it comes back green?
Yeah.
Yes.
I've had my text threads go along and all of a sudden it'll go green because it can't send something, and I haven't figured out if there's a way to force it to go back to blue.
There's a setting you have turned on that, like, basically if the blue fails, it'll try a regular classic SMS.
Yeah, but it seems like once it gets into that mode,
Won't go back.
Won't go back.
Just tell that user to switch back to Apple.
Right.
That's happened to me before in the past too, and by deleting the conversation, sometimes it'll go back to iMessage.
I think if you try the setting first before you.
Yeah, if you go to settings.
Sometimes once it goes off, then it does get stuck in
Okay.
off mode, cause that happened to me, my
I-
husband and I.
I turned it off a long time ago and I haven't
He's
really
got
seen it.
the-
It's a setting right here called, send as SMS. Send as
Yeah,
SMS
when
when
all else
iMessage is
fails,
unavailable.
delete it and start
Okay.
over.
And if you turn that off, it might solve your problem. I had a weird situation with, I don't know if it was T-Mobile or what, but whenever I'm in a large group conversation and one person doesn't have iMessage, I miss out on big chunks of the conversation. Like, I just don't get parts of it.
That's really.
It might be T-Mobile or something. I've tried looking it up, but it's kind of a weird thing to Google, weird phrase to try and Google. And I guess if other people don't know they're missing his messages, they don't know to Google that or post anything about it. Because I kind of figured out that I wasn't getting them. Maybe there's a lot of people out there who don't even realize they're not getting the messages.
Are there workshops for, like, tutorials for iOS? Actually, live tutorials, not necessarily like the ones that, you can download for.
You mean, yes, I think there is some, so you're talking about, like a class you can go to in Austin? I think I saw one that they just started offering it. They just started offering it, I sent someone an email, let me see if I can find that email.
There's also livecoding.tv website where you can like jump in on, some people do like live talks and they'll like go through like a set of information. It's not like, it's just like more like a live question answer tutorial. You get like a chat box and stuff, you can ask some questions.
Oh. Virtually.
Are there any Twitch, is there any Twitch content for?
Yeah, I think actually some people on Twitch have started doing code. I'm not sure. I've actually
I've
never
heard it's cool
used
to watch
Twitch.
people do that.
Okay, real quick question for somebody who's good on hardware configurations. I'm shopping RAM, 4 gig versus 8 gig.
8.
I say get as much RAM as you possibly can.
What's it for? What's it for?
Developing iPhone apps.
You want 8?
I always go with 16, but.
I have 16 on my machine.
All right.
It's.
I don't have that much of a budget yet.
I mean, the Mac OS used to, actually utilize over 8 gig quite regularly, even with a minimal number of apps. But with a recent point release, with their latest version, it dropped everything by half, I noticed. And I've talked with other people, and they've kind of noticed the same thing, because I'm kind of geeky when it comes that way. I've always watched memory through the years, and see what the base level is and how much is used, and it's very consistently below 8 nowadays. And it used to go above 8.
What kind are you trying to buy?
Well, I'm gonna get a Mac Mini. I have a low budget, so it's gonna have to be a Mini, and I haven't seen any minis with 16 gig. What about
Mini might be up there.
i5, Core i5 versus i7?
They solder it on now too.
Yeah, I think everything on the Mini is.
i5 is probably i5.
i5 is.
Yeah, it's probably.
Honestly,
So-
for doing, for compiling
Dual
apps.
core, quad core.
So,
It's probably, it's all gonna be i5, honestly, i7.
No, there's i7.
Really?
Yeah, they're i7 Mac Minis. I just looked at some of them. I follow something called Refurb Tracker, which will show you refurbished units that are available at.
Well, maybe they updated them, as far as the refurb, because I don't think they ever sold any with i7.
Huh. Well, I saw
Yeah,
some.
I haven't seen i7s.
I
I mean,
went from-
i7 would be like, close to 1800.
Right.
I went from a pretty
Yeah,
high
yeah,
processor
Capital
laptop. that
no,
had
we just got
hard
a new
disk,
office.
magnetic disk.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, you guys moved?
Then I
Yeah,
got one that
we,
had an
moved to
SSD
West
and a
Sixth Street.
slower processor.
Awesome.
Our internet's not working right now.
Yeah.
That's
But
not
I
fun.
already have that disk that doesn't have to
No,
spin
but,
to compile
right.
1,500 files.
We like to work
We're getting
in
a
long
1
term,
terabyte
so-
flash
Nice.
drive. It's- they're
Oh,
like
so Fridays were the only time that you guys came in
well,
anyway?
the thing
Yeah.
is, you don't need that much space.
Basically, yeah.
Internally, you can always get a
Yeah, like most
external
people,
hard drive if you
like,
need more
most of the
space.
developers are
Yeah, it's
doing
better to
like
get
5
a,
hours a week in the office.
256, SSD, right, so you have that speed.
But,
That's speed, and plus, that's like the one thing in computers,
yeah,
usually
yeah, we
changes a
come
lot.
Monday
It's the
morning
hard
and
disk.
Thursday morning.
But if you get an SSD, they don't really age. And you know, computers get slow over time.
Right.
That physical hard magnetic disk is really one of the things that ages and that.
Yeah,
Right.
we just got a new office
If you dual core, quad core,
after 2 years here.
What kind of apps are you building? Is this strictly for development?
Yeah.
You don't need a super,
I don't know, there were a
like,
lot of perks to
powerful
the
processor
office
Okay.
here.
to do your
Alright.
compiling. If you have one, it's a nice
so
benefit.
No, I
2.3
came and they had this
dual
thing
core
called
should be.
Hack Rabbit Fridays, and I came
That,
and
get an
David helped
SSD,
me
that, and 8 gigs of
with
RAM.
some
16 if you can
direction,
stumble upon it somehow. would be
because I'm
awesome.
still relatively new.
Cool. Like,
I always end up getting the top of the line MacBook Pros.
2 or 3 months.
Oh, yeah.
Or like,
And, you know, it lasts me a long
yeah,
time.
Capital Crack is
yeah,
awesome. I don't think our
so
main office
he's
goes there.
saying he's on a good
We
budget.
just have
Yeah,
people
so
that
that's,
work
so,
but,
so I think, normally I would have said
Yeah.
16
Oh, I got
absolutely,
my
but I think
keyboard
8 gig.
Oh, yeah?
Works.
I think that's what
no, I didn't find it, but I know it's in Austin.
I cannot, with the brown, cherry mixed browns, I cannot.
Maybe if I look at my computer, I can find it better.
Yeah. Click.
iOS 12?
Yeah.
And it wasn't cheap, it was like,
Feels to me
Well, I
like
worked with
it's
her
like a
Oh, yeah.
year where you can't tell.
it was like, I think it was
I guess, I don't know, I guess I don't know.
Not really
Feel
confused.
what you're
Oh,
like
yeah.
going for.
I don't think it's
First one.
Really? Well, but I mean, so like, are you, so like you're specifically trying to not push the key all the way down?
Right.
Why?
If you're doing something like playing a game, you have pounding the keys.
So does that apply to you in your practical scenarios?
Yeah, when I'm trying to keep up, when I'm trying to keep up with Zachary on EverQuest, yes.
Yeah.
No, it's not that
Yeah.
easy, I'm not playing that much.
I really can't tell, but like somebody would have to set me up all the different ones and specifically explain it. I mean,
Well, I
can
know
hear
with
the
the
difference.
blue, you can definitely hear a click.
Yeah.
I can feel when they're stiffer, but I don't get this whole click scenario that some people are worried that they're gonna have to like, I mean, the amount of spaces
They're
are
not,
ridiculous, I just don't understand.
they're not like usually connecting.
And I actually
Client
put
or
a set of the,
Too much
oh,
process.
the
I
transparent.
ain't interested in
Yeah,
how that
something
works out. Mine has a little bit of a metal sound to it, because it's like aircraft or whatever. The typing has a little bit of a sound, it's not from an actual click, but it's like almost like an echo.
Well, it's from,
And that
it's
rings
from
with
bottoming out the keys, what it is, and with the O-rings, it should help
Yeah.
with that. So, yeah, you're welcome to try some of
Trail
them.
rings. They have different rings too.
Yeah, but if you like the colors, you want it transparent, so these are all.
That was like,
Something
that's
like-
like 90% of the keyboard lights.
Yeah.
Someone sent different features that I didn't like, which is why I asked.
Someone asked me if I was.
I like the
still in my
dedicated
class.
media stuff.
So I was
okay.
doing
Yours
class,
doesn't have that, or-
No, but it's got things you can use for that, so.
Different things, like the Space War, the UASD are different, slash textured.
Kind of, yeah.
I think so, from the pictures.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, he helped me just pop all the keycaps on, he'll alcohol swab around the different things, and for the most part, I feel like it's fine.
Okay.
There's one arrow key that still seems a little sticky, but it still functions, and it's not like triggering.
Just on the same day, I got
That's what he said, he's like,
email
your keyboard's messed if you're pushing a button and it's triggering multiple things. But he said everything seems pretty fine.
Stuff I read online said mostly just use water first and only use isopropyl if you have to.
Probably like in Meetup, or like in November.
Take the lubricant out.
Yeah.
Or it's like a separate
Yeah,
thing.
you can buy products online to switches.
This one was mostly like on the surface, around the edges, we just took a Q-tip and like alcohol swab,
Yeah,
and it
no,
really
if
didn't
you
feel
didn't
good.
just saturate the key with it, then you get
The wheel was obnoxious, so that one we like flipped it over and we like wheeled it along like a pad, like a paper towel. The scroll wheel that I was talking about.
Oh,
has
yeah, I
sorts of
don't think,
stages.
yeah, I don't, mine doesn't have that.
Yeah, yours does not have that.
Right, yeah.
Anyway, but I think they build them so
But I think
robust
mine
there
is-
for the
I think
design that
mine
way.
is heavier than yours, I mean, it's a I was surprised it's heavier, but apparently the plastic is
Yeah, I've
heavier
done
than aluminum.
Yours is a lot cheaper though, so that's why you.
Yeah,
I'm interested in trying yours out.
I worked on a couple of projects.
Yeah, I mean, it's expensive for.
One of them was on my.
I'd shop for one that I actually worked with for a lady, so.
Yeah. Well, I've typed with a lot of different keyboards.
I bought a really, before I really thought about how I was going to use my computer mostly, I bought just a highly recommended on Amazon $20 like wireless that had a trackpad on it. So I was thinking, you know, use it like people were talking about, hook your computer up to a TV, then from your couch you can navigate with a keyboard. So I just bought that, and then it just, the trackpad sucked and didn't work very well, and I just never got a keyboard for an entire year until now, and then I got it. That's why I was so sad.
Blah, 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 then you know,
Yeah.
Finally, people don't treat things very well sometimes.
What did you do for a mouse?
I just still have the one I had before. It's a Razer, got that version.
Yeah, so
It's an
there's always
optical mouse.
there's always a
Razer's
new version
a
for every version of Xcode.
Yeah.
And
Mouse.
there's also a new version of
It doesn't have
iOS.
like 50 buttons.
So
It's got the main two, it's got a wheel, and it's got a couple
it
sides.
changes
Very
that
ergonomic, it's a good fit for my keyboard, it's very popular.
And I have Logitech.
But it's generally backwards.
My friends that are real actual gamers, they had the same one that I had, the Razer got that one, but they messed up their wheels will stop working, and so they kind of get pissed about Razer, and they're like, well, the wheels suck. So they've moved on, but I had not ruined my wheel because I don't get so much stress. So Nathan, he bought some ridiculous fancy Logitech mouse that has like clicky buttons to change the speed of your mouse, but different, like you can do it on the fly.
Yeah.
He was really impressed with all these different features, but it felt like it was a little bit small, and it felt like all the buttons were too crammed together, and I need some temperature.
Yeah, I don't have enough dexterity to use it.
Right, like I didn't
So
have
the biggest
Yeah.
change was between iOS 6
Yeah.
and 7. So like code from iOS 6, which is 3 years
One thing that
ago.
happens with the Logitech mouse is that after a while,
iOS 7
they start double
2
clicking.
years old.
now there's OS
They start doing that.
Mine has some broken in, so I'm still choosing the one I've got.
I have a 9, so I'm fixed so I can get a new one.
So you've already got the keyboard, but you have this
Yeah,
one.
but 8,
No, I
9,
got it today, and I barely just got out of the box and hit the keys a few times.
I like that part. Because then I know like when the long words let you know what type of parameter comes next.
We haven't met
Which is a pain to
David.
type out.
She's getting out tomorrow.
I like
David,
it.
Polish.
Anyway,
Yeah. That's what
yeah, I got a lot of stuff.
I'm gonna get myself there.
Yep, no, that is. Oh yeah, you can ask if y'all are Friday.
That's me. I got
Just us.
Oh, the meetup?
These bands are gonna be
I'm Steven.
to drag it out.
Yeah.
I went to the, I wanted to go to the game one.
I think, I've got something,
iOS development for
Thursday,
part-time course. This is,
got stuff.
you can walk to this place from here.
Yeah, it looks like
Friday,
Friday.
Tuesday.
Yeah,
This
today's
is,
Friday night
we
was
work,
fine,
I think.
Okay.
or Saturday.
But
Yeah.
Okay, let's plan for Friday.
this is the only one though. Awesome.
Yeah,
Put in there then, 6.
Sure.
So give us
I feel like if you're
Don't wear
picking
live
6, that
when
means we're gonna end up like traffic
Keep
time
them
or something.
around.
Oh, okay.
If we're gonna be there, I don't know, Katie was,
Yeah.
I don't know, I'll talk to her, but
Yeah,
she's
they're
planning for
on.
Friday, since it's done, so.
Okay,
But I don't know why they started just doing that recently.
well, we were gonna go somewhere, right?
Either we'll come to y'all's house.
Thanks so much.
Make dinner.
Take care. I gotta run. I'll see you next month.
Okay.
It's just another, try to hang out before.
Try out some of the other ones too.
Thanks for putting this on, David.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
All right,
think
I
I'm
got it
just-
in my
I'm
thing.
hopeless.
The core data problem?
I'll tell them.
Yeah.
I can't figure it out. I am hardcore stuck.
You want me to see if I can?
I will buy you beers if you will help me fix this. I have spent probably 20 hours on this.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Yeah, this was
So
a-
that's
this
the
was a great
detailed
session. I
control,
was
this is how I'm passing it. So my core data
impressed
stack
with the
is
amount
my
of
separate, I have all my
interactions
core
and
data
stuff. I've been going
methods,
to some
save main
WordPress
context.
meetups.
Oh,
and
yeah.
There.
They're okay, they're good. I
So
mean,
I
the
pass
WordPress
it
community in Austin is
to
incredible.
the
It's
editing
like the
controller.
fourth or fifth
And this is
largest
the
in the
item
world.
I've been going,
that
I
I'm
used
using
to go to
to
some of
populate
those.
all the fields.
Yeah.
So when we get here,
The problem I get is I get
this is the
overwhelmed.
item
I mean,
that calls the configure view
they
method.
answer a lot of questions
And
for
this
me, but
populates all of the
I'm
text
sort of
fields
stuck at the,
with,
I
and
don't
it
wanna make a
works.
mistake
It
that
works
either
really well.
wrong.
Let's see. See,
What is it?
it
I'm
goes
looking
there,
for it.
and then it populates all the fields just fine.
Word,
So
uh,
that part works, so the information is there.
Right.
What type of error do you see when
Thousands of
you
different
say?
free, themes.
Yeah.
Picking a
well,
theme,
shouldn't take that long.
I don't wanna pay for a theme that I find out I don't like,
It's
but I
the,
don't want to start out
it's
with
the
a.
finding a nil,
free
when there's not
theme.
supposed to be a nil.
You just gotta do your research.
And
So,
now the
edit.
problem is, it's a religion